Maria Lopez woke up at 5:30 a.m., just like she did every day. The room was still dark, the faint glow of streetlights seeping through the thin curtains of her small apartment. She lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather the energy for another long day ahead. Being a single mother wasn't easy, especially when you had bills to pay and a child to raise on your own. But Maria didn't have time to dwell on self-pity. Life moved fast, and if she didn't keep up, things would fall apart. The sound of soft breathing beside her reminded her why she kept going. Her 6-year-old daughter, Sophia, slept peacefully, curled up under her favorite pink blanket, covered in cartoon unicorns. Maria smiled as she watched her. Sophia was the light of her life, the reason she got out of bed each morning no matter how tired or overwhelmed she felt. With a deep breath, Maria swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood up. It was time to start the day. By 6 a.m., both Maria and Sophia were awake and moving around the tiny kitchen. Breakfast was simple: a bowl of cereal and a glass of milk for Sophia, and a cup of instant coffee for Maria. They didn't have much, but Maria made sure Sophia always ate well. As Sophia sat at the table munching on her cereal, she looked up at her mom with wide, curious eyes. "Mommy," Sophia said, "do you think today will be special?" Maria paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Special? Why do you ask that, mija?" Sophia shrugged, her curly hair bouncing slightly. "I don't. No, I just feel like something exciting might happen. Maybe we'll meet someone who changes our lives." Maria chuckled softly, ruffling her daughter's hair. "You've been watching too many movies, sweetheart. Life doesn't work like that. Most days are just normal." But even as she said it, Maria felt a flicker of hope spark inside her. What if Sophia was right? What if today was different? She quickly pushed the thought away. Hoping for miracles only led to disappointment, and Maria couldn't afford to let herself down, not when there was so much depending on her. After breakfast, Maria helped Sophia get dressed and ready for school. Their routine was efficient, born from years of practice. By 7:30 a.m., they were out the door, bundled against the crisp morning air. The walk to Sophia's school took about 10 minutes, and during that time, Sophia chattered nonstop about everything and nothing: her friends, her teacher, the book she was reading. Maria listened patiently, nodding and responding whenever necessary. These moments with Sophia were precious, a reminder of the joy hidden within the chaos of their lives. When they reached the school gates, Sophia gave Maria a tight hug before running off to join her classmates. Maria watched her go, her heart swelling with pride and love. Then, taking a deep breath, she turned and headed toward the cafe where she worked mornings. The cafe, called Brew Haven, was located on a busy corner of the city. It was a cozy little place, filled with the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans and the hum of conversation. Maria had worked there for 3 years now, ever since Sophia was born. Her shifts started at 8 a.m. and ended at 2 p.m., after which she would rush home to pick Sophia up from school and then head to her second job cleaning offices downtown. As Maria tied her apron behind the counter, she braced herself for the usual morning rush. Customers poured in steadily, ordering lattes, cappuccinos, and pastries to fuel their hectic days. Maria moved quickly, her hands deftly preparing drinks while her mind wandered. She thought about the laundry waiting at home, the rent check due next week, and whether she'd have enough energy to play with Sophia tonight. Despite the stress, Maria found comfort in the rhythm of the cafe. There was something soothing about the predictability of it all: the clink of cups, the hiss of the espresso machine, the polite exchanges with customers. Even though the work was exhausting, it gave her a sense of purpose. Around 10 a.m., the crowd began to thin out, giving Maria a brief moment to catch her breath. She leaned against the counter, sipping a lukewarm cup of coffee someone had left behind. For a few seconds, she allowed herself to relax, letting the calm wash over her. But then, the bell above the door jingled, signaling the arrival of a new customer. Maria glanced up instinctively and froze. Walking into the cafe was a man unlike anyone she'd ever seen before. He was tall, with broad shoulders and an aura of authority that commanded attention. His suit was immaculate, tailored to perfection, and his leather shoes gleamed as if they'd just been polished. He carried himself with an effortless grace, exuding wealth and power without saying a word. Maria straightened immediately, smoothing her apron and plastered on her professional smile. "Good morning," she greeted him warmly. "What can I get started for you today?" The man hesitated for a moment, studying the menu board. Then he looked at Maria, his piercing blue eyes locking onto hers. "A cappuccino, please," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "Of course," Maria replied, already reaching for a cup. "Would you like anything else with that?" He shook his head. "Just the coffee, thank you." As Maria prepared his drink, she couldn't help but steal glances at him. Who was this man? What brought him to this little cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of the city? He seemed out of place here, like a king visiting a peasant's village. Yet there was something approachable about him, almost gentle. When the cappuccino was ready, Maria handed it to him with a polite smile. "Here you go, sir. Enjoy your drink." "Thank you," he said, offering her a small nod. Then he turned and walked to a table by the window, setting his briefcase down beside him. Maria watched him for a moment longer before returning to her duties. Little did she know, this seemingly ordinary encounter would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. For now, however, the cafe buzzed with its usual energy, and Maria refocused on her tasks. The morning continued as expected, with customers coming and going, orders piling up, and the steady hum of activity filling the air. But somewhere in the back of her mind, Maria couldn't shake the feeling that today was different, that something extraordinary was about to happen, and maybe, just maybe, Sophia had been right all along. The cafe buzzed with its usual energy as Maria moved behind the counter, her hands busy preparing drinks and ringing up orders. The mysterious man in the suit sat quietly by the window, sipping his cappuccino while scrolling through emails on his phone. He seemed completely absorbed in his work, oblivious to the world around him. Occasionally he glanced outside, watching people hurry past the cafe, but most of the time his focus remained on the screen in front of him. Maria tried not to stare, but she couldn't help sneaking quick looks whenever she had a moment. There was something magnetic about him. His confidence, his calm demeanor, the way he carried himself like someone who owned the room without even trying. She wondered what kind of life he led, what kind of world he came from. It was hard to imagine someone like him stepping foot into a place like Brewhaven, let alone sitting there for more than a few minutes. Yet here he was, perfectly at ease. Around noon, the cafe began to empty out. Most of the morning rush had subsided, leaving only a handful of customers scattered throughout the space. Maria took advantage of the lull to tidy up the counters and restock supplies. As she worked, she noticed that the man hadn't left yet. In fact, he seemed content to stay, nursing his coffee and typing away on his laptop. Then, just as she was wiping down the espresso machine, the door swung open, and Sophia ran inside. "Mommy!" Sophia called out excitedly, her school bag bouncing against her back. "I finished early today." Maria turned toward her daughter, surprised. "What are you doing here? Didn't Mrs. Ramirez say she'd walk you home?" Sophia shrugged, her cheeks flushed from running. "She got busy talking to another teacher, so I came by myself. Can I hug you before I go back to school?" Maria smiled, setting aside her cleaning cloth. "Of course, mija." Sophia threw her arms around Maria, squeezing tightly. For a brief moment, Maria forgot about the chaos of her day, the endless list of tasks waiting for her. All that mattered was the warmth of her daughter's embrace. But then Sophia spotted the man by the window. Her eyes widened with curiosity. "Who's that, Mommy?" she whispered, pointing discreetly. "That's one of our customers," Maria replied softly. "He's just having some coffee. Don't bother him, okay?" Sophia nodded, but instead of walking away, she hesitated. Something about the man intrigued her. Maybe it was the way he looked so serious, or maybe it was the sadness, she thought she saw in his eyes when he glanced up briefly. Whatever it was, Sophia felt drawn to him. Before Maria could stop her, Sophia walked over to the man's table. "Hi," she said brightly, standing beside him. The man looked up, startled. For a moment he simply stared at her, unsure how to respond. Then slowly a smile spread across his face. "Hello there," he said, his voice warm and gentle. "What's your name?" "I'm Sophia," she announced proudly. "And this is my mommy's cafe." The man chuckled. "Well, it's very nice to meet you, Sophia. My name is James." "Are you sad?" Sophia asked bluntly, tilting her head to one side. James blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Why do you ask that?" "You look lonely," Sophia explained, matter-of-factly. "People shouldn't be lonely." For a split second, James didn't know what to say. No one had spoken to him so honestly in years. Not since his daughter passed away. The memory hit him like a wave, sharp and unexpected. But before he could dwell on it, Sophia did something that surprised him even more. She threw her arms around his waist and hugged him tightly. The entire cafe froze. Maria, who had been watching from behind the counter, gasped audibly. Her heart raced as she rushed over, mortified. "Sophia," she exclaimed, pulling her daughter away gently. "I'm so sorry, sir. She doesn't usually—" "It's all right," James interrupted, laughing softly. His expression softened as he looked down at Sophia. "I think I needed that more than I realized." Maria blinked, stunned. She hadn't expected such a gracious response. Most people would have been annoyed or uncomfortable, but James seemed genuinely touched. "She has a big heart," Maria said apologetically, though there was a hint of pride in her voice. "That's a wonderful thing," James replied, meeting Maria's gaze. "We could all use a little more kindness in our lives." Sophia beamed, clearly pleased with herself. "See, Mommy? I told you today would be special." Maria shook her head, torn between amusement and disbelief. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" After a few more moments of awkward conversation, Sophia reluctantly returned to school, promising to behave better next time. Maria apologized again to James, who waved it off with a dismissive smile. "No harm done," he assured her. "In fact, I should thank her. That hug reminded me of something important." Maria frowned slightly, curious but hesitant to pry. "Important?" James hesitated, as if debating whether to share more. Finally, he said, "Let's just say it's been a while since someone showed me genuine affection. It's refreshing." His words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Maria nodded slowly, sensing there was more to his story than he was letting on. But she didn't press him. Some things were better left unsaid. Over the next few days, James became a regular at the cafe. Each time he visited, Sophia greeted him with the same enthusiasm, hugging him tightly before skipping off to school. At first, Maria worried it might be inappropriate or awkward, but James never seemed bothered. In fact, he seemed genuinely fond of Sophia and curious about Maria. One afternoon after the cafe closed, James lingered longer than usual. Maria was counting the day's earnings behind the counter when he approached her. "Maria," he began hesitantly, "may I ask you something personal?" She looked up, startled. "Of course." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "How do you manage everything? Raising Sophia, working 2 jobs. It must be exhausting." Maria sighed, leaning against the counter. "It is," she admitted. "But I don't have a choice. I do what I have to for my daughter." James nodded thoughtfully. "You're an incredible mother, Maria. Sophia is lucky to have you." The compliment caught her off guard. "Thank you," she murmured, feeling a lump rise in her throat. There was a pause, and then James added, "I lost my own daughter a few years ago. Seeing Sophia reminds me of happier times. And her hugs." He trailed off, his voice thick with emotion. "They bring me comfort I haven't felt in years." Maria's heart ached for him. She couldn't imagine the pain of losing a child, the emptiness it must leave behind. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "Thank you," James replied, composing himself. "But that's not why I wanted to talk to you." Maria frowned, confused. "Then why?" James took a deep breath. "I'd like to help. You work too hard for too little. Let me take some of that burden off your shoulders. Pay for Sophia's education, perhaps, or help with rent." Maria stared at him, speechless. Was this real? Could someone actually step into her life and change it overnight? She opened her mouth to protest, but James held up a hand. "Please hear me out," he said earnestly. "I don't want anything in return. I see how hard you're working, and I admire that. You deserve a break, Maria. Let me give you one." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. "That's incredibly generous of you," she said, her voice trembling. "But I need time to think about it. Accepting charity, even well-meaning charity, feels wrong somehow." James nodded understandingly. "Take all the time you need. Just know that the offer stands." As he walked out of the cafe, Maria sank onto a stool, overwhelmed by the weight of his words. Could she really accept his help? And if she did, what would it mean for her and Sophia? For now, all she knew was that James Whitaker III had walked into their lives unexpectedly, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed James's offer were a whirlwind of emotions for Maria. She couldn't stop thinking about it, no matter how hard she tried. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sophia's smiling face and imagined the opportunities his generosity could open up for her daughter: a better school, art classes, maybe even college someday. But then guilt would creep in, whispering doubts into her mind. Was it right to accept help from someone she barely knew? What if people judged her for taking charity? Maria wrestled with these thoughts during her shifts at the cafe and late into the night as she cleaned offices downtown. Her second job was exhausting, both physically and mentally, but it gave her plenty of time to think. As she scrubbed floors and emptied trash bins, she replayed James's words over and over in her head. "You deserve a break, Maria." Did she? Or was accepting his offer admitting defeat, like saying all her sacrifices weren't enough? Meanwhile, James continued visiting the cafe regularly. Each time he came, Sophia greeted him with the same enthusiasm, hugging him tightly, before rushing off to school. Maria noticed how much brighter James seemed since Sophia had entered his life. The sadness that once lingered in his eyes was fading, replaced by warmth and gratitude. It was clear that their friendship meant something to him, something deeper than just casual politeness. One afternoon, after the lunch rush ended, James stayed behind longer than usual. He sat at his usual table by the window, sipping his coffee while flipping through papers on his laptop. Maria approached him cautiously, unsure of what to say. "James," she began hesitantly. "Can we talk?" He looked up, surprised but pleased. "Of course, what's on your mind?" Maria took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I've been thinking about your offer to help us, and I wanted to ask you something." James closed his laptop and leaned forward, giving her his full attention. "Go ahead." She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Why are you doing this? Why would you go out of your way to help strangers like us?" For a moment, James didn't answer. He stared at his coffee cup, lost in thought. Then he sighed softly and said, "Because I know what it's like to lose everything. When my daughter passed away, I felt like my world had ended. Nothing mattered anymore. Not work, not money, not anything, but meeting Sophia. Seeing her smile, feeling her kindness, it reminds me of the joy I used to have. And helping you feels like the right thing to do. Not because I pity you, but because you remind me of strength and resilience. You inspire me, Maria." Maria blinked back tears, overwhelmed by his honesty. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, with such sincerity and admiration. "I don't know what to say," she admitted quietly. "You don't have to say anything," James replied gently. "Just know that my intentions are pure. I want to help because I can, and because it makes me happy to see good things happen to good people." His words struck a chord deep within Maria. For so long she'd been fighting alone, believing she had to carry every burden herself. But now, here was someone offering to share the load, not out of obligation but out of genuine care. Could she really turn that down? That evening, after finishing her shift at the office, Maria picked Sophia up from school. They walked home, together, hand in hand as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sophia chattered excitedly about her day, but Maria's mind was elsewhere. "Mommy, why are you so quiet?" Sophia asked, tugging on her sleeve. Maria forced a smile. "Just thinking, Mija." "About Mr. Whitaker," Sophia guessed, her big brown eyes sparkling mischievously. Maria laughed despite herself. "How did you know?" "Because he makes you smile funny," Sophia teased. Maria shook her head, amused. "Well, maybe he does. But I need your opinion." "On something?" Sophia perked up immediately. "What is it?" As they reached their apartment, Maria knelt down to Sophia's level, looking her straight in the eye. "Mr. Whitaker wants to help us. He wants to pay for better schools, new clothes, maybe even art lessons for you. But I'm not sure if we should accept it. What do you think?" Sophia tilted her head, considering the question seriously. After a moment, she said, "If it makes you happy, Mommy, I want it." Her simple yet profound answer brought tears to Maria's eyes. Sophia always had a way of cutting through the noise, of seeing things clearly when others couldn't. "Are you sure?" Maria pressed gently. "It might feel strange having someone else take care of us." Sophia nodded confidently. "But if it means we don't have to worry so much, I think it's okay. And besides, Mr. Whitaker is nice. He smells like cookies." Maria burst out laughing, the tension easing from her shoulders. Maybe Sophia was right. Maybe it was okay to let someone else help them, for once. The next morning, Maria arrived at the cafe early, determined to give James an answer. She found him, already seated at his usual spot sipping his cappuccino. "Good morning," she greeted him nervously. James looked up and smiled. "Morning, Maria. How are you today?" "I've made a decision," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Oh?" James raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "I'll accept your help," Maria continued, "but on one condition." "Anything," James said quickly. "I'll pay you back someday," Maria stated firmly. "Every penny. This isn't charity, it's a loan, a partnership." James chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Maria, I admire your determination, but—" "No buts," Maria interrupted, her tone resolute. "This is important to me. I want to prove to myself that I can still stand on my own 2 feet, even with a little help along the way." James studied her for a moment, clearly impressed by her resolve. Finally, he nodded. "All right. If that's what you need to feel comfortable, then we'll call it a partnership. Deal?" "Deal," Maria agreed, extending her hand. James shook it warmly, sealing their agreement. In that moment, Maria felt a weight lift off her shoulders, a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. Over the following weeks, James wasted no time putting his plan into action. He paid off Maria's mounting debts, secured Sophia a spot in a prestigious private school, and even offered Maria a part-time position at one of his companies. At first, Maria hesitated to leave the cafe, where she'd worked for so long, but James assured her it wouldn't be forever. "You've earned this chance, Maria," he told her. "Don't let fear hold you back." With renewed confidence, Maria accepted the job offer. It wasn't easy adjusting to a new role. She spent hours studying spreadsheets, attending meetings, and learning the ins and outs of corporate life. But she tackled each challenge with determination. Slowly but surely, she began to thrive. Through it all, James remained a constant presence in their lives. He visited the cafe less frequently now, but he and Maria kept in touch, sharing updates about their progress. Sophia adored him more than ever, often asking when Mr. Cookie Man would come visit again. Life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges to face, sacrifices to make. But for the first time in years, Maria felt like she could breathe. The future no longer seemed like an endless uphill battle. Instead, it brimmed with possibilities. And as for James, he found unexpected joy in helping Maria and Sophia. Their laughter filled the void left by his daughter's absence, reminding him of the beauty in connection and compassion. Together, they proved that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could spark the greatest transformations. Life began to change for Maria and Sophia in ways they never imagined. The weight of financial stress slowly lifted, replaced by a sense of stability that had eluded them for years. James's help didn't just ease their burdens, it opened doors they hadn't even known existed. Sophia started attending her new school, where she thrived academically and socially. Her teachers praised her creativity, especially in art class, and encouraged her to pursue her passion for painting. Meanwhile, Maria settled into her part-time role at James's company, learning new skills and gaining confidence with each passing day. But despite the positive changes, doubts lingered in Maria's mind. Accepting James's generosity had been a leap of faith, one she wasn't entirely comfortable with yet. Every time she thought about the money he'd spent on their behalf, the private school tuition, the rent payments, the clothes Sophia wore, she felt a pang of guilt. Was it selfish to accept so much? Could she ever truly repay him? These questions haunted her late at night when the apartment was quiet, and Sophia slept peacefully beside her. One evening, after putting Sophia to bed, Maria sat at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills that were now mostly paid off. She flipped through them absent-mindedly, her thoughts swirling. On paper, everything looked perfect. Their debts were gone, Sophia was excelling in school, and Maria had a stable job. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, that this newfound security came at a cost she hadn't fully understood. The knock on the door startled her. Glancing at the clock, she realized it was late, too late for visitors. Hesitantly, she walked to the door and peeked through the peephole. To her surprise, it was James. "Maria," he said when she opened the door. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "No, not at all," she replied, stepping aside to let him in. "Is everything all right?" James nodded, though his expression was serious. "I just wanted to check in. You've seemed distant lately. Is everything okay?" Maria hesitated, unsure how much to share. Finally, she gestured toward the table. "Would you like to sit down?" They settled into chairs across from each other, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. After a moment, Maria spoke. "I've been thinking a lot about your offer, and everything you've done for us," she began slowly. "And, while I'm incredibly grateful, I can't help but feel conflicted." "Conflicted?" James repeated, leaning forward slightly. "How so?" "It's hard to explain," Maria admitted, fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. "On one hand, I know you're trying to help, and I see how much happier Sophia is because of it. On the other hand, I feel like I'm losing control over my own life, like I'm relying too much on someone else instead of figuring things out myself." James listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "Maria, I understand why you feel that way. Trust me, I do. But let me ask you something. Does accepting help mean you're weak? Or does it mean you're smart enough to recognize when you need support?" Maria frowned, considering his question. "I guess it depends on how you look at it." "Exactly," James said firmly. "There's no shame in asking for help when you need it. In fact, it takes courage. What matters is what you do with that help, how you use it to build a better future for yourself and Sophia." His words resonated with Maria, but they didn't completely erase her doubts. What if people think I'm taking advantage of you? Or worse, what if I fail? What if I can't pay you back? James smiled warmly, reaching across the table to pat her hand reassuringly. "Maria, I trust you. And as for what others think, let them talk. Their opinions don't define you. All that matters is that you're doing what's best for your family." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," James insisted. Don't overthink it. Just focus on moving forward, one step at a time. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt a glimmer of peace. James's reassurance reminded her why she'd trusted him in the first place. He genuinely cared about their well-being. The next morning, Maria woke up with renewed determination. She decided to take James's advice, to stop worrying about what others might think and focus on making the most of the opportunities he'd given them. That afternoon, during Sophia's art class, Maria stayed behind to speak with her teacher. Sophia has incredible talent, the teacher gushed. Her use of color and perspective is remarkable for someone her age. Have you considered enrolling her in advanced classes? Maria hesitated, thinking about the additional costs. Then she remembered her promise to herself, to embrace this chance and provide Sophia with every opportunity possible. Yes, she said finally, smiling. We'll look into it. As the weeks passed, Maria threw herself into her work, determined to prove she could succeed without relying solely on James's generosity. She took online courses to improve her skills, volunteered for extra projects at the office, and networked with colleagues to expand her knowledge. Slowly but surely, she began to climb the corporate ladder, earning promotions and raises along the way. At home, Sophia blossomed under the guidance of her art teacher. Her paintings became more vibrant, more expressive, capturing emotions that words couldn't describe. One evening, as Maria hung one of Sophia's latest pieces on the refrigerator, she felt a swell of pride. This was what James's help had made possible, a brighter future for both of them. But even as life improved, Maria couldn't forget her promise to repay James. She started setting aside a portion of her paycheck each month, no matter how small, determined to honor their agreement. It was a slow process, but every dollar brought her closer to her goal. One Saturday afternoon, Maria invited James to join them for lunch. They met at a cozy cafe downtown, where Sophia excitedly showed him her latest artwork. Look, Mr. Whitaker, she exclaimed, holding up a colorful painting of a sunset. This one's my favorite. James studied the piece carefully, his eyes lighting up with admiration. It's beautiful, Sophia. You're going to be a famous artist someday. Sophia giggled, blushing at the compliment. Do you really think so? I know so, James replied confidently. After lunch, Maria pulled James aside for a private conversation. I wanted to thank you again for everything, she said sincerely. You've changed our lives in ways I never thought possible. James shook his head modestly. It's not me, Maria, it's you. You're the one who's worked so hard to make the most of this opportunity. Don't forget that. Maria smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. Still, I want you to know how much it means to us. And I'm keeping track. I'll pay you back, just like we agreed. James chuckled softly. Take your time, Maria. There's no rush. Besides, seeing you and Sophia happy is repayment enough. His kindness touched Maria deeply, reminding her once again of the goodness in the world. For so long she'd believed she had to face life's challenges alone, but James had shown her that sometimes leaning on others wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a reminder of the strength found in connection. As they parted ways that afternoon, Maria felt lighter than she had in years. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she knew they could handle whatever came their way, as long as they faced it together. And somewhere along the way, Maria realized something important. James wasn't just helping them financially. He was teaching them the value of trust, resilience, and hope. These lessons would stay with them long after the debt was repaid, shaping their lives in ways neither of them could have predicted. Years passed, and the changes in Maria and Sophia's lives became more profound with each passing day. What had started as a simple act of kindness, a child's hug, had grown into something far greater, a partnership that transformed not just their circumstances, but also their outlook on life. The struggles of the past seemed distant now, like shadows fading in the light of a brighter future. Sophia, once a shy little girl who clung to her mother's hand, blossomed into a confident young woman. Her artistic talent flourished under the guidance of dedicated teachers and mentors at her prestigious school. By the time she reached high school, her paintings were being showcased in local galleries, drawing praise from critics and art enthusiasts alike. One evening, Maria stood proudly beside Sophia at an exhibition featuring her work. As visitors admired Sophia's vibrant pieces, Maria couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with emotion. "This one is my favorite," James said, pointing to a large canvas depicting a swirling galaxy filled with stars. "It reminds me of hope." Sophia beamed, turning to him with gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Without your support, I wouldn't be here today." James smiled warmly. "You're too kind, Sophia. Your success is all your own. I'm just glad I got to witness it." Hearing those words, Maria felt a lump rise in her throat. She glanced at James, marveling at how much he'd done for them. His generosity hadn't just opened doors, it had changed the trajectory of their lives forever. Meanwhile, Maria continued to thrive in her career. Starting as a part-time employee at James's company, she worked tirelessly to prove herself, earning promotions and taking on leadership roles. Within 5 years, she became a manager, overseeing teams and spearheading projects that contributed significantly to the company's growth. Her determination inspired others around her, and she quickly earned a reputation as someone who could overcome any obstacle. But Maria never forgot where she came from, or the promise she'd made to repay James. Every month, she set aside money from her salary, no matter how busy or stressed she was. It wasn't easy, especially during tough times when expenses piled up, but she remained committed to honoring their agreement. Finally, after nearly a decade, Maria saved enough to cover everything James had given them. One afternoon, she invited James to meet her at the cafe where their journey had begun. When he arrived, she greeted him with a warm smile, though there was a hint of nervousness in her expression. "Thank you for coming," she said as they sat down at a table by the window, the same spot where James used to sit years ago. "Of course," James replied, studying her curiously. "What's on your mind?" Maria took a deep breath, pulling out a check from her purse. "I wanted to give you this," she said, sliding the envelope across the table. James picked it up, frowning slightly. "What's this?" "It's everything," Maria explained, her voice steady despite the emotions bubbling inside her. "Every penny you spent on us, the school tuition, the rent, the clothes, everything. I promised I'd pay you back, and now I have." For a moment, James simply stared at the check, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed softly, setting it aside without opening it. "Maria," he began gently, "you don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do," Maria insisted, leaning forward earnestly. "This was our deal, remember? A partnership, not charity. I needed to prove to myself that I could stand on my own 2 feet, and I did. With your help, I built a better life for Sophia and me, but I can't keep moving forward until I fulfill my end of the bargain." James looked at her for a long moment, clearly moved by her resolve. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right. If this is what you need to feel at peace, then I'll accept it, but let me make one thing clear. The real debt has already been repaid. Seeing you succeed, watching Sophia grow into such an incredible young woman, that's worth more than any amount of money." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. "Thank you, James, for everything." He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "No, thank you. You reminded me of what truly matters in life. Before I met you and Sophia, I was lost. I didn't think I deserved happiness after losing my daughter. But your kindness, your strength, it gave me hope again. You saved me as much as I helped you." Maria shook her head, humbled by his words. "We saved each other." As they sat there, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of the cafe, Maria reflected on how far they'd come. Life hadn't always been fair, but through hard work, determination, and the power of human connection, they'd created something beautiful. In the years that followed, Maria and James remained close friends. Though their paths diverged as Maria advanced in her career and Sophia pursued her dreams of becoming an artist, they stayed connected, sharing updates and celebrating milestones together. James attended Sophia's college graduation, where she, delivered a heartfelt speech about resilience and gratitude. "I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for my mom and Mr. Whitaker," Sophia said, her voice trembling with emotion. "They taught me that kindness can change lives, and that no matter how hard things get, there's always hope." The audience erupted in applause, and Maria wiped away tears as she watched her daughter shine. Beside her, James clapped enthusiastically, pride shining in his eyes. Looking back, Maria often marveled at how one spontaneous hug had changed everything. Life wasn't perfect. There were still challenges to face. But they faced them together, stronger than ever. And as for James, he smiled whenever he saw Sophia, knowing that her kindness had saved him as much as he'd saved them. Sometimes the smallest gestures could spark the greatest transformations. For Maria, Sophia, and James, that transformation had been nothing short of miraculous. Their story was proof that even in the darkest moments, a single act of compassion could light the way forward, guiding them toward a brighter, more hopeful future. And so, as Maria walked hand in hand with Sophia down the bustling city streets, she knew one thing for certain. Life might throw its share of storms, but with love, courage, and a little help from unexpected places, they could weather anything. After all, miracles happened every day, you just had to believe in them.